Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey, everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Good Gene. In ancient Chinese legends, it was believed that flowers, plants, and trees, especially those of unusually large size, could transform into fairies or spirits. They were even said to be capable of assuming a human-like appearance and possessing human-like thoughts. Therefore, in folk tales of ghosts and monsters, there are many stories about flower fairies and spirits. And today, we are going to tell a story about a peony flower spirit. In the city of Luoyang, there was a man named Chang Daong. His love for peonies had reached an extreme level of obsession. He had heard that the peonies in Chaozhou were the most renowned in the entire Qilu region, and he greatly yearned to see them. One day, Chang Daong had some business to attend to in Chaozhou, so he found lodging in the garden of a local wealthy merchant. It was only February, and the peony flowers had not yet blossomed. He could only wander around the garden, gazing at the tender buds on the peony branches, eagerly anticipating the moment when the peonies would bloom. In his leisure hours, he would compose poems in the merchant's house, and before he knew it, he had written 100 short poems about peonies. As some more time passed, the peony buds gradually began to swell, but his travel funds were running low. He had no choice but to pawn his spring clothes and continue staying with the merchant, unwilling to leave. One early morning, Chang Daong arrived at the flower garden and saw a woman and an elderly lady standing there. He suspected that they might be from a wealthy family and hastily turned to leave. When he returned in the evening, he saw them again. Chang Daong slowly hid himself and discreetly observed them. The woman was dressed in exquisite clothing, and her beauty was beyond compare. He was in a daze, but then a thought struck him. This woman must be a fairy. How could there be such a beautiful woman in the mortal world? With this realization, he hurriedly turned back to find them. He had just turned a corner behind a faux mountain when he bumped into the elderly lady face to face. The woman was sitting on a nearby stone, and when she saw Chang Daong, she became visibly startled. The elderly lady stepped forward, blocking the woman, and scolded Chang Daong, saying, "What are you, a reckless fellow, trying to do?" Chang Daong straightened himself and knelt down, saying to the woman, "Miss, you must be a fairy." The elderly lady reprimanded him. "To utter such frivolous words, you should be bound and taken to the magistrate." Chang Daong was terrified by her words. However, the woman smiled and said, "Let him go." With that, the woman and the elderly lady went around the faux mountain and departed. When Chang Daong tried to return, he found himself almost paralyzed with nervousness. He imagined how the woman might report his behavior to her father and brothers, and they might come to insult him. He returned to his lodgings and lay alone in the empty study, regretting his rash actions. Yet, he secretly rejoiced that the woman didn't appear angry, perhaps not taking the matter seriously. Thus, Chang Daong spent a sleepless night, feeling both regret and fear. The next day, he fell seriously ill, his condition growing worse and he became emaciated, almost on the brink of death. Fortunately, as dawn broke, the woman's family didn't come to inquire about the incident. This brought some relief to Chang Daong. He began to reminisce about the woman's appearance and charm, and his initial fear slowly transformed into longing. 3 days passed, and Chang Daong's illness worsened. He looked increasingly haggard and frail, on the verge of death. One night, Chang Daong's lamp was still lit in his room, and his servants were fast asleep. Suddenly, an elderly woman walked in, carrying a bowl. She approached Chang Daong and spoke angrily. "My lady, Lady Gujin, has personally prepared a bowl of poison for you. Hurry up and drink it." Chang Daong was greatly shocked upon hearing this, and after a moment, he said to the old woman, "I have no enmity with your lady. Why would she want to give me a death sentence? Since this poison is personally prepared by your lady, instead of dying from lovesickness, I might as well drink this poison and die quickly." With that, he tilted his head back and drank the potion. The elderly woman smiled, took the bowl, and left. Chang Daong found the potion both fragrant and refreshing, unlike poison at all. After a while, he felt his chest open up, and his mind became clear. The comfort in his body led him to a peaceful sleep, and when he woke up, it was already a sunny day. Chang Daong tried to sit up and realized that his illness seemed to have been completely cured. This strengthened his belief that the woman was indeed a celestial being. Since he didn't have another chance to meet her, Chang Daong could only imagine her standing, sitting, devoutly kneeling, or silently praying whenever he had a moment alone. One day, Chang Daong went for a walk in the garden, and suddenly, he collided with the woman in the thickets. Fortunately, there were no other people around. He was overjoyed and prostrated himself on the ground. Gujin helped him up, and Chang Daong could smell a peculiar fragrance emanating from her. He immediately held Gujin's delicate wrist in his hand and stood up. His fingers touched her skin, feeling its softness and smoothness, making his bones turn to jelly. He was about to speak when the elderly woman hurried over. Gujin motioned for him to hide behind a rock and pointed to the south, saying, "Tonight, use a flower ladder to climb over the wall. There, in the houses with red windows on all sides, is where I live." With that, she hurriedly departed. Chang Daong watched her departing figure with a sense of melancholy, as if he had lost his soul, not knowing where to go next. At night, he brought a ladder and climbed up the south wall, only to find that a ladder had already been placed on the other side. He climbed down the wall in excitement and indeed saw a house with red windows on all sides. He heard the sound of someone playing chess inside, so he stood for a while and then climbed back over the wall. After a short while, he climbed over the wall again to check, and he still heard the frequent sound of chess being played. Chang Daong sneaked closer to the house and saw Gujin playing chess face to face with a girl dressed in plain clothing. The elderly woman was sitting beside them, and a maid was attending to them. He had no choice but to retreat to the wall. In this manner, Chang Daong repeated his actions 3 times, and by then, it was the middle of the night. He lay on his ladder in his own courtyard and heard the elderly woman on the other side of the wall exclaim loudly, "Whose ladder is this here?" Several maids then removed the ladder. Chang Daong tried to climb the wall again, but to his dismay, the ladder was gone. Helplessly, he returned to his room in a gloomy mood. On the following evening, Chang Daong climbed the wall again and found that a ladder had already been set up on the other side. Fortunately, it was quiet and deserted around, so he entered the house. Inside, he saw Gujin sitting alone, lost in thought. As soon as she saw Chang Daong, she stood up in panic, turned her face aside, and blushed. Chang Daong stepped forward, bowed, and said to her, "I consider myself an unworthy man, and I was worried that as a mere mortal, I would have no fate with a celestial being like you. But unexpectedly, I am able to meet you tonight." With that, he tried to embrace Gujin. Chang Daong noticed that Gujin had a slender waist, just enough to fit in his grip, and her breath was as fragrant as an orchid. Gujin gently pushed him away and said, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Chang Daong replied, "Good things come to those who wait, but if we wait any longer, even the ghosts might become jealous." However, before he could finish his sentence, he heard voices in the distance. Gujin hurriedly said, "It's my younger sister, Yu Ban, who's coming. Quickly, hide under the bed." Chang Daong hastily crawled under the bed. In a short while, a woman entered. She smiled and said, "You defeated underling, would you dare to have another chess match with me tonight? I've brewed some tea and specially came to invite you to enjoy the long night together." Gujin declined, saying she was tired, but Yu Ban insisted on taking her along. Despite Gujin's reluctance, Yu Ban said teasingly, "Are you so unwilling to leave because you're hiding a man in the room?" With that, she forcibly pulled Gujin out of the room. Chang Daong, filled with resentment, searched Gujin's pillow hoping to find something she had left behind. However, he didn't find the cosmetics box in the room. Instead, he saw a crystal ruyi near the head of the bed. Attached to the ruyi was a purple handkerchief that smelled fragrant and looked lovely. He tucked the ruyi with the handkerchief into his pocket, climbed over the wall, and returned to his own place. Chang Daong straightened his clothes and realized that Gujin's fragrance still lingered. His admiration for her grew stronger. However, because of his experience hiding under the bed, he began to fear being reported to the authorities. He thought it over repeatedly and didn't dare to go back, but cherished the ruyi, hoping that Gujin would come to find it someday. After one night, Gujin indeed came. She smiled and said to Chang Daong, "I always thought you were a gentleman, but it turns out you're a thief." Chang Daong replied, "That's true. The reason I occasionally acted as a thief was just to wish everyone well." With that, he embraced Gujin, unfastening the buttons on her dress. Gujin's fair skin was exposed, and her warm body exuded a delightful fragrance. Chang Daong held her close, feeling that even her sweat smelled exceptionally sweet. Chang Daong said to her, "I already suspected you were a celestial being, and now I'm even more convinced." I am fortunate to be the object of your affection. We are truly destined to be together across 3 lifetimes. However, I worry that when a celestial being marries a mortal, it will ultimately lead to parting and sorrow. Gujin smiled and said, "You worry too much. I am just a mortal woman temporarily swayed by love. Please keep this matter absolutely confidential. I fear that someone may spread rumors and distort the truth, and then our relationship will no longer have a good outcome. At that time, our separation would be even more miserable than a simple parting." Chang Daong agreed to keep their secret but still had doubts about whether she was truly a celestial being. He repeatedly asked her about her surname. Gujin replied, "If you believe I'm a celestial being, how can a celestial being reveal their name to others?" Chang Daong inquired further. "Then who is the elderly woman who is often with you?" Gujin explained. "Her name is Mother Sang. She took care of me when I was young, so my attitude towards her and the other maids is different." With that, she prepared to leave, saying, "My household has many eyes and ears. I can't stay here for long. I will come back when I have the chance." Before parting, she asked Chang Daong for the rui again, saying, "This isn't mine, it belongs to my younger sister, Yu Ban, and she left it with me." Chang Daong asked, "Who is Yu Ban?" Gujin replied, "She is my cousin." Chang Daong handed the rui to Gujin, and she departed. After Gujin left, the unique fragrance still lingered on the bed and pillow. From then on, every few nights, Gujin would visit. Chang Daong became infatuated with her and no longer thought about returning home. However, his luggage was already empty, and he planned to sell his horse. Learning of his intention, Gujin said, "You've spent all your money for me, even pawned your clothes. I can't bear it. Now, you want to sell your horse. How will you get back home, more than 1,000 miles away? I have some savings, and I can help you with your current expenses." Chang Daong tried to decline, saying, "I'm very grateful for your kindness. Even if I swear on my life, it's not enough to repay your feelings for me. But if I greedily and despicably spend your money, am I still a human being?" Gujin insisted on her offer, saying, "Consider it a loan from me." With that, she took Chang Daong's arm and led him to a mulberry tree. She pointed to a stone and said, "Move it." Chang Daong did as she said. Gujin then removed a hairpin from her head and stabbed it into the ground dozens of times. She continued, "Dig up the soil." Chang Daong followed her instructions, and he saw a mouth of a jar revealed in the soil. Gujin reached in and took out more than 50 taels of silver. Chang Daong grabbed her arm to stop her from taking more, but Gujin didn't listen and took out more than 10 ingots of silver. Chang Daong insisted that she put back half of it, and then covered the soil back. One night, Gujin told Chang Daong, "Lately, I've heard some rumors. We can't continue like this for much longer. We need to come up with a plan." Chang Daong said in surprise, "What should we do now?" I've always been conservative and cautious. It's because of you that I've lost the dignity of a gentleman and can't make decisions for myself anymore. I will follow your arrangements completely, even if it means facing danger with knives and axes at my throat. I don't care anymore. Good Jin then devised a plan to escape together with Chang Daong. She instructed him to return home first, and they agreed to meet in Luoyang. Chang Daong packed his belongings and planned to return home first before coming back to fetch Good Jin. However, to his surprise, as soon as he arrived home, Good Jin's carriage was already waiting at his doorstep. Together, they entered his family's house and paid their respects to Chang Doying's parents. The neighbors were astonished to hear that Chang Daong had brought back a bride, and they came to offer their congratulations. Little did they know that the couple had secretly returned. Chang Daong felt a bit anxious, but Good Jin remained calm. She said, "Never mind if people here don't know our secret, and even if they find out, remember, I'm the daughter of a prominent family. Just like in the past, when Zhou Wangsun and Sima Xiangru fell in love, what's the big deal about eloping with a poor man? You can rest assured." Chang Daong had a younger brother named Chang Dachi, who was only 17 years old. When Good Jin saw him, she said to Chang Daong, "Your younger brother is a promising young man. His future may be even brighter than yours." However, just as Chang Dachi was about to get married, his fiancée suddenly passed away. Good Jin said to Chang Daong, "You've seen my cousin Yu Ban before. She is not unattractive, and she is about the same age as your brother. If they were to become a couple, it would truly be a match made in heaven." Chang Daong chuckled and playfully begged Good Jin to help arrange the marriage. Good Jin replied, "If you really want to bring her here, it's not difficult." Chang Daong eagerly asked, "Do you have any ideas?" Good Jin said, "My cousin and I are very close. All we need to do is prepare a small carriage and send an older woman to fetch her. It's a simple task." However, Chang Daong was concerned that this plan might expose their secret elopement, so he hesitated to agree. Good Jin reassured him, saying, "Don't worry." So, they decided to send Mother Sang, who had come with Good Jin and a carriage to bring Yu Ban. After several days, the carriage arrived in Chaozhou. Mother Sang got out of the carriage and asked the coachman to wait by the roadside. She then sneaked into the garden under the cover of the night. After some time, she returned with a young woman and they both got back into the carriage. They traveled back to Chang's home. During the journey, they slept in the carriage at night and resumed their journey in the early morning. Good Jin calculated the timing and instructed Chang Dachi to go and welcome his bride. He walked more than 50 miles to meet them. Chang Dachi greeted the young woman with a formal wedding ceremony. That night, the Chang family celebrated with music, bright candles, and festive drums. The bride and groom bowed to each other and officially became a couple. From that day on, the Chang brothers both had beautiful brides, and their family's life became increasingly prosperous. One day, dozens of horseback bandits suddenly stormed into Chang's residence. Chang Daong realized that the bandits had invaded and immediately had his entire family hide upstairs. The bandits entered the courtyard and surrounded the building. Chang Daong leaned over the railing and asked the bandits, "Do we have any enmity between us?" The bandits replied, "We have no grudge. We just have two requests. First, we heard that the two ladies here are exceptionally beautiful and unparalleled in the mortal world. We request to meet them. Second, there are 58 of us brothers, and we request 500 taels of silver each." The bandits piled up firewood downstairs, intending to set the building on fire to intimidate them. Chang Daong agreed to their demand for extortion, but the bandits were still not satisfied and wanted to set the building on fire, causing great panic among the family members. Gujin and Yuban wanted to go downstairs together, ignoring others' attempts to stop them. They descended the stairs to a platform 3 steps from the ground. Gujin addressed the bandits. "My sister and I are both celestial beings temporarily in the mortal realm. How could we fear you, a group of bandits? I would be willing to give you 10,000 taels of silver, but I'm afraid you wouldn't dare to accept it." The bandits all knelt down in unison and said, "We dare not." Just as the sisters were about to turn around, one of the bandits shouted loudly, "Are you trying to deceive us?" Gujin turned back to face the bandits and said, "What do you intend to do? Make up your minds quickly, it's not too late yet." The bandits looked at each other, utterly silent, and then, miraculously, they left without saying a word. 2 more years passed, and the sisters each gave birth to a son. It was only then that they gradually revealed their true origins. Their original surname was Wei, and their mother was known as Lady Chow. Chang Daong began to suspect that there were no prominent Wei families in Chaozhou. Moreover, if they belonged to a large family, how could they have abandoned 2 daughters without a trace? Although he didn't dare to question Gujin directly, he couldn't help but find it peculiar. One day, he found an excuse to return to Chaozhou. While in the area, he inquired around and discovered that there were no households with the surname Wei among the prominent families. He continued to stay with the same local wealthy merchant as before. While there, he noticed a poem on the wall titled "To Lady Chow," which struck him as peculiar. He inquired with the host, who then invited him to meet Lady Chow. When they arrived to see Lady Chow, they found it was actually a peony plant. This peony had grown exceptionally tall, even reaching the height of the roof. Chang Daong asked about the origin of the peony's name, and the host explained that it had been named as Lady Chow because it had once ranked first in a flower exhibition in Chaozhou, and friends playfully called it Lady Chow after that. Chang Daong inquired about the peony's variety, and the host replied, "This peony is called Gujin Purple." Chang Daong was increasingly astonished and began to suspect that Gujin and her sister might be flower spirits. Upon his return to Luoyang, he didn't dare to confront Gujin directly. Instead, he shared the story of to Lady Chow, and closely observed her reaction. Gujin immediately furrowed her brows, her expression changed, and she quickly left the house. She asked Yu Ban to bring their sons to stand in front of Chang Daong and said to him, 3 years ago, I transformed into a human form and married you as a token of gratitude for your love of peonies. But now that you no longer trust me, how can I continue to live with you? With that, she and Yu Ban held up their children and threw them far away. To Chang Daiyang's shock, the 2 children vanished into thin air. He turned back to look at the 2 women, only to find that they had also disappeared without a trace. Chang Daiyang was filled with remorse over what had transpired. A few days later, at the spot where the children had fallen, 2 peony plants sprouted. Overnight, these 2 peonies grew to be about a foot tall and bloomed with flowers. One was purple, and the other was white. The peony blossoms were as large as plates, and their petals were even more delicate compared to the usual peony varieties, Gujin and Yuban. Over the years, these 2 peony plants grew into a lush flower bed. When they were moved to different locations, they even changed their variety, and no one could identify their names. From that point on, Luoyang's peonies became renowned as the best in the world. In the story's conclusion, the author added a commentary. Persistent individuals sometimes find ways to communicate with spirits and ghosts. In such cases, we cannot say that Gujin lacked compassion. Back in the day, the great poet Bai Jui compared flowers to his own wife during moments of loneliness. Moreover, this peony flower spirit understood Chang Daiyang's love for flowers and willingly became his wife. Since they could live peacefully, there was no need for Chang Daiyang to pry further. It seems that he was not a particularly discerning person. Note: in the story, although Chang Daiyang and Gujin were not officially married, they continued to meet secretly at night, fearing that others would find out. In ancient China, it was not permissible for men and women to meet privately, according to social etiquette. If the people around them discovered this, both parties could face severe punishment. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Gujin. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.